Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two-Shoes. If I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say...
Hi and welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly. I'm that recovering good girl and your victorious woman empowerment partner. And this is where us victory chicks and you men who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to overcome our challenges, get empowered, and make our lives sparkle. So thanks for coming to Happy Hour today. And we're wrapping up the summer and putting a bow on it with Linda Perillo Zazzalli. And we're talking about empty nests and some fall travel. And travel is one way for you to celebrate your empty nest. So Linda's fun, and we'll have a good time talking with her. And that'll be in just a bit. You know, I forgot to tell you last week about my Wild Elvis weekend in Wildwood with Elvis. Yes, that's right. He didn't die. Elvis was in Wildwood with me. Just kidding. I'm not one of those Elvis conspiracy theorists. But last week was the 40th anniversary of Elvis Presley's death, so if Elvis were still alive, he'd be 82. Now, I don't think he'd be gyrating with me down the shore. But for those of you who are big Elvis fans, you probably remember exactly where you were when he died, right? Well, I'm not a big Elvis fan, but Joseph is. So, although, to be honest, I like Elvis better than I used to. And you know why? Remember back in March when I went to Atlanta for a wedding? Well, Joseph and I left Atlanta the day after the wedding, and we drove to Nashville, Tennessee, by way of Tupelo, Mississippi. And we went to Tupelo specifically to visit Elvis' childhood home. And it was a real eye-opener for me. The house Elvis was born in was so tiny. It was a tiny rectangular thing. They call it a shotgun house. It had just 2 rooms, a bedroom where Elvis and his parents slept and a kitchen. And no indoor bathroom. It was an outhouse. So from the front porch, you walk through the front door into the bedroom. No living room. And then straight through that room into the kitchen and then right out the back door. And did you know Elvis' father built that house and made it from a kit that he bought from Sears? A house kit from Sears. He built it in preparation for the birth of Elvis and his identical twin brother. And if you're an Elvis fan, you probably know that his twin brother died at childbirth. So it was just Elvis and his parents who lived there. And you know, every Sunday, and how Elvis got to know some of that music, besides going to church, was from the Grand Ole Opry. But they didn't have electricity, so Elvis' father would get juice for the radio, get this, by taking the battery out of the car and connecting it to the radio. And they did it on Saturday night so they could listen to the Grand Ole Opry. Then, after the show, Elvis' father would put the battery back in the car. So, you know, the Presley family was literally dirt poor. And as small as it was, that little house, that shotgun house, they didn't keep it. They never paid the money that they owed Sears, and Sears repossessed the house. But, you know, one year after Elvis got famous and when the house was for sale, Elvis did a concert for his former neighbors and friends and donated all the proceeds to the town with the intention that the town would purchase that house and the tiny church that Elvis went to growing up, and put both of them on a beautiful piece of ground just outside the tiny town of Tupelo. And now the house, the church, and several surrounding buildings are a museum. And the thing I liked best about it, and I think the thing that really gave me insight into who Elvis Presley really was, are the walls. There's like a lot of walls that have inscriptions. They're inscribed with the memories that some of Elvis's childhood friends and adults who knew him said about that they grew up with him and all. That what they were saying. So, because I wasn't of the time of Elvis and mostly saw him as a womanizer, like a sexist kind of guy, and that didn't fit for me. It was different after I left Tupelo. And I was only there for about 24 hours, but it made a shift in my thinking. And I had a whole different picture of Elvis, so I could see more of the singer that Joseph gets excited about. And it's because of Joseph and Joseph's birthday surprise that I booked us into the Summer Nights Bed and Breakfast in North Wildwood. Yeah, you've probably heard me talk about Summer Nights before. It's this kitschy place where the rooms are all decorated with different themes from the 1950s. For example, Joseph and I stayed in the movie room, and they had pictures of Liz Taylor, Marilyn Monroe, and James Dean, who really was quite handsome for being such a young guy, complete with James Dean DVDs. In fact, Joseph and I tried to watch one of probably was James Dean's most memorable movie, Rebel Without a Cause. And I've never seen it, but so we put the DVD in, but we both fell asleep before we finished the movie. So now I have to see if it's on Amazon or, at the library or someplace. So anyway, the movie is where we stayed this time. And last fall we stayed in, I think the room's called Life is a Beach. And it was all about Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello. And there's a Marilyn room, an Elvis room, and you get the idea. And the dining room looks like a small, like a malt shop. Couldn't speak there for a second. Yeah, the dining room looks like it has booths and a jukebox. And the owner, Sheila, serves breakfast dressed like the cool chicks of that era, complete with poodle skirt and saddle shoes. It's really cute. And you know what? Because Sheila knew when I called to make the reservation, Sheila knew it was Joseph's birthday. So in our room, she put roses and chocolate-covered strawberries and a bottle of wine in the room. How nice was that? Joseph loved it. So that's normal when you go to Summer Night's Bed and Breakfast. But then a few times a year, Sheila and her spouse, Rick Brown, do some specialty-themed weekends, like the Elvis weekend. And that's where I was. And it was so fun. And this is not just for the guests at Summer Nights. They make it to be like a block party. And the street's blocked off, and the neighbors come from all over, set up their beach chairs in the street, and they watch Elvis, who does his show both on the street and on the porch. But Elvis didn't show up till around 7 o'clock, but his alter ego, Keith, showed up about 6 o'clock and chatted with all of us. And I was really glad to meet Keith before he was Elvis, because I did a lot of interacting with Elvis, and I'm not so sure I would have been as comfortable playing with him if I hadn't met him first. But interact I did, Victory Chicks. I fast danced with Elvis, and then we slow danced as he sang to me, and I got to be one of the Las Vegas showgirls when he did the Viva Las Vegas number. But get this, how I've said I had no singing voice. Well, all of us who were singing, we were the background singers, and then Elvis put the mic in front of me, and guess what? It was a once and done. Like, I think he heard how bad I sing. But when I'm in the car, I sing like Adele, or maybe Janis Joplin. But I'm probably the only person who thinks I sing like that. So anyway, the funny thing was that since all of those people know there's so many of those people who were there at the Elvis weekend. Joseph and I were one of the few who had not ever been there before. And they know Keith. And so things got a little rowdy, at least on the porch, because there were young kids in the audience on the street. But on the porch, some of the ladies got a little down and dirty with Elvis, like Lorraine from Paoli, who put one of Elvis's scarves in her mouth while it was still around Elvis's neck. And she got like a little sexy with it and with him. And it was so much fun. And then we had, after Elvis left the building, and then Keith showed up, and we had food. Sheila made us some food, including peanut butter and banana sandwiches, which I understand were Elvis's favorites. So, and you know what? It rained all day. We thought it was going to be canceled. About 6 o'clock, the sky cleared up, and the rain stopped, and from about 6 till about 10 minutes after Elvis left. It was great. And then it started to rain again. I think that might have been the spirit of Elvis. Say, listen, Linda Perillo Zazzalli is here. And if that Perrillo name sounds familiar, it's because you've been hearing it probably since you were a kid, because the Perrillo family has been talking to you through commercials for years. So we're going to be talking a little bit about travel, but Linda has done a personal reinvention, so I wanted to tell you about that. So go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and come back for Linda Perillo Zazzalli. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and Linda Perillo Zazzalli is here. Welcome to Happy Hour, Linda.
Oh, thanks for having me, Annmarie. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm glad you are. Linda, there are two things I wanted to talk with you about today and to share for you to share with my listeners. First is about your empty nest reinvention, including tips for any of my listeners who are now empty nesting or maybe empty nested last week, and now they have more time to do things for themselves. And including starting their own blog, which is what you have been doing.
Yeah, I have actually. So I'm not really an empty nester, although most people. I did just turn 50 in July, and most women at 50 are empty nesters and have kids at college. I have kids at college, kids in grammar school, and I have a pre-K-er at home.
Seriously,
I'm not exactly
Linda,
by myself yet, but...
Wait. You have a pre-K?
I do. He's just turned 4. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. And how old is your oldest?
He's 21.
That's a really big span.
It is. But it's so funny that you bring up the empty nesting, because I was just telling a friend of mine that we just came back from vacation, and it was different because my 4-year-old, he's becoming independent, and for 21 years I've had a baby on a vacation. And this was the first time I haven't. And one of the reasons I started the blog when I did last year is because, the baby wasn't so dependent on me anymore. And I was finding more time for myself to do, what I love to do. And that really was writing. And I was a journalism major, and I was in publishing before I went into the family business. So I think you kind of go back to your roots, and you go back to what God gave you as far as your talents and your propensities. And I think if I had to give anybody any advice as empty nesters, although I'm not really there 100% yet, it's what did you love? What did you love to do before you became a parent? And that kind of, brings back a little bit of the fountain of youth when you start going back to those things that you loved to do. And that's what I tell women. You have to reinvent yourself, basically, and go back to who you're never going to get the years back, right?
No.
But the love is always there, and the passion is built in.
But Linda, don't you think sometimes we forget? And every person who comes on comes to Happy Hour to talk about reinvention says the same thing. Go back to what you love. But how is it that so often we just don't even remember what that was. You know?
And that happens. You get, as a parent, and listen, I've been a full-time mother, for almost 22 years, and that's what I've been doing. My dad was the CEO and founder of Perillo Tours, and I was in the business until I had Devin, my oldest. And I left the business then to raise my kids. And I think as mothers, especially if we're stay-at-home parents and we're totally engulfed in the parenting thing, you think you've lost yourself. But I found that as my kids got out of diapers, so to speak, I found myself coming back, but naturally. Like, oh my gosh, I have time at a computer now to write a little bit, or I actually have time to look. I don't really look at magazines anymore, but to cook more because I love cooking. And I think things just start. Whoever you are is always there, and you have to kind of tap into it. It's true, we forget. Sometimes
we do.
We just forget. Yeah.
And Linda, you're Italian, so I'm wondering what you did with all the guilt that came with.
Oh, the guilt, Annmarie, I think it drives my life every day.
And every woman says it, Linda. Every woman talks about that guilt, but I think. And I have a lot of, with my Italian side, and I have a lot of Jewish friends. We compete over who does guilt better.
Oh, yes, agreed. But, it's really, the guilt thing is very driven. You have to remember, too, and this is just from a religious standpoint. I also went to Catholic school my whole life, right?
Oh, it's like a double whammy. I know.
Double whammy. And my kids are in Catholic school. My kids are in Catholic college. It's like you can't get away from somebody like who's above you going, did you do that? Are you sure? Is this, So I think that's part of our makeup. And sometimes, too, I think as women and as moms, you always carry a little bit of guilt because you're always putting your family first. You're putting your kids first. So when you start putting yourself first, someone starts tapping you on the shoulder and going, wait a minute. Are you sure it's okay if you go get a ped? Are you sure it's okay if you go take a night class? Are you sure? And then the kids make you feel guilty. Kids always have a way of making you feel guilty all the time. So I admit I'm a victim, and I cannot help anybody out of that rut because I'm in there.
I too many times I've heard women say, well, I was going to do this, and then my daughter got sick, or this happened. And then here's the thing. So I call myself a recovering good girl, and I always think of this as one of the good girl things where they will say, well, I didn't do it anymore because I just figured that if God wanted me to do X, then it would have been easier. And, do you ever hear a guy say that?
Never.
They say, I want to do this.
Oh.
That's the obstacle in my way. I'm going through it.
Men don't have, I've noticed that too. And listen, my husband is an all-time good guy. He's a great husband. He's a great father. He would be my role model for this is the way it should be. But I think that there are certain innate, propensities or proclivities that are in a man, that are in a woman, that make a woman a mother. And she's the leader of the house, right? And she's the one that does all the organizing. And that makes a man, because I don't think men are let me just say this, and I'm not trying to say it in a bad way. They are more I didn't say selfish,
but self-focused,
self-centered than women are. And I just think it's a natural way. I just think that's how nature is. I think, they can't help it, and I just think that the males in every species are the same way.
Well, but my spouse and I talk about this because I noticed this, and here's one of the things that I noticed, that he has to really learn to be less self-focused and more focused on me. We've been together a pretty long time, so probably the same thing with you, but so it's not the issue it was maybe in the first 5 years of our marriage, but it was like he was so focused on what he was doing, and then I want to do this and this and this. I'm like, did you forget that we're partners here?
Yeah, right.
And so what I noticed was that it was a learning curve for him. But in the same way that we that we as women expect the men in our lives to go through that learning curve and be a little less focused on themselves and a little more focused on us. Mm-hmm. We have to learn the opposite.
Right.
And learn to be...
And that's hard. I think that's really, really... It's hard for me. It's hard for me to sometimes to say, hey, Linda needs to do this for Linda. Mm-hmm. And I'm just now starting to realize that that's okay sometimes to be like, Linda needs this, because if you don't, like, listen, my husband's great. Like, we have an analogy that we talk about all the time about the oxygen mask on the plane. When they tell you the oxygen mask drops, they tell you to put it on yourself before you put it on your kid. So, metaphorically speaking, that oxygen mask is your life. If you don't have that oxygen on first, you'll never be good for anybody else. You'll run out of energy, you'll run out of desire, you'll run out of oomph, and then you'll never do anything right. You'll never blog right, you'll never take care of your family, So I think in the end, Annmarie, it comes down to balance, and it's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. It
is, Linda, and I think that just sometimes just that recognition and women like you and me talking about it, it's to thousands of Victory Chicks out in our listening audience, that it's like, okay, you don't have to feel guilty. So, and if you do feel guilty, listen, and you felt guilty when you ate that piece of chocolate cake and it wasn't on your diet, so you get over it.
You do get over it, but I have a hard time. The thing is, I do, and you do get over it, but in the moment sometimes, like, oh no, should I be doing this? I'm enjoying myself. I can't do this. Mm-hmm. So it's different, but it balance. It comes down to balance, and you have to learn to achieve balance.
Well, but here's the other thing. I was on your Facebook page, and you are the Real Hip Mom. So, Linda, what made you choose Real Hip Mom as your Facebook moniker?
I think it's because I wanted to stay current with my kids. Mm-hmm. And, also, too, I have them in varied age groups. So, again, we talked about being empty nesters and being in your 50s and your kids being in their 20s. I have to stay current with a whole bunch of age groups, and I swore I would never get old. Even when I was 50, I said, I can't do this. I have to stay current with them so that I understood them better, so that we had a good relationship, but also for myself, to feel younger and to feel more energetic. And I push myself to do that every day, to exercise and to diet. Then you talk about time for your... I'm sorry, there must have been a beep there. Time for yourself. Like, I make sure I get up in the morning and I work out. I don't do an extensive workout. I'm not a gym rat. I work out at home. I make sure that my hair is done, my makeup is done. I'm a clothes nut. And that's what I do for Linda, to make Linda feel good. And that kind of, that kind of parallels with the Real Hip Mom. And that's where that came from.
And a lot of times I hear that even with people, I've talked with a lot of people who have had cancer, and just that idea of what you're saying, to get moving as best as they can and put some makeup on, makes them feel like they're normal, and it makes them feel better. Well,
I have to tell you, it's funny you bring that up, because I had renal cell cancer in 2004, and I was 30, I think I had just turned 36, because one of my youngest, Valentina, she's now almost 15, she was a little over a year, and I only had the 3 kids. And listen, I survived, and thank God, and I'm here.
Yeah.
But in the end, I said to myself, man, my life is short too. I'm not immortal.
Yeah.
And you have to make every day and every second count. And that's what I learned from that 14 years ago.
Linda, so, we need to take a break, but when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about that and about what you did to create your own reinvention and what you did with your writing.
Okay.
So everybody stay close. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Linda Perillo Zazzalli, and we're talking about reinventions. And Linda, Linda was saying that she went back to what she loved to do when she was a kid. So, Linda, for you, that was writing. And so, how did you figure out you could do something else with your writing?
As far as what? As far as the blog?
Yeah, with your how did you get it started? And
well, I think what happened is, and listen, I think as human beings, we all do this. We get an idea in our head and we say to ourselves, okay, well, one day I'm going to do it. Or I really want to do that. And I started writing a book. And then when I started writing the book, I said, you know what? I've got to get a voice out there. I have to get a blog because this is what I need to do for myself, to release all these thoughts and this creativity in my head. And I did. And actually, my kids are in theater. And long story short, I made a connection through a wonderful photographer, David Captain, who did my girls' headshots. He says, I have a woman that does websites, and her name is Ellen. And I called Ellen one day, and she did my girls' websites, and I said, I need a blog. And I said to myself, I am going to stick to this because I have a tendency to be a procrastinator. I have a tendency to come up with these great ideas and never follow through. And I said, damn it, I'm doing this. I'm doing it because I want to do it, and I need a voice. And I felt that through blogging, especially the Real Hip Mom, the key word there is real. I think a lot of us have, especially, and I've always said this through social media, unfortunately, we think other people's lives are more perfect than ours, or people are others
or
are
more interesting,
yes. Or they're infallible, or their parenting is better. We're all in competition, I noticed, about parenting. Rather than saying, hey, you know what? We've probably all done the same crap or same stuff. Let's talk about it and go, you know what? Nobody's perfect. It's okay. And that's what I love about my blog. I put stuff on there that I go, well, yeah, guess what? Even with 8 kids, I did it. This was stupid. This was a mistake.
I know I should have known better, but I didn't.
Yes. Where was my foresight? Oh my gosh. And you know what? And to be able to look back at it and laugh is the best. So that's why I wanted to blog. I wanted moms to realize, A, parenting and mothering is the most important job anybody will ever give you. But with that comes a ton of responsibility, and it also comes with a lot of, got to think on your feet, and a lot of creative thinking, and a lot of troubleshooting, and that it's okay to parent, and it's okay to be a mother, and so that's how the Real Hip Mom was born.
Now, I was on your Facebook page. Your daughters, am I getting this right? Your daughters are singers?
2 of them are very involved in theater right now. Yes.
Didn't they just recently sing in New York? Was it at Feinstein's?
Actually, they have sung a few. The last gig they did in New York was at Feinstein's 54 Below. They did a wonderful a tribute, and it was so beautifully done. And they keep moving on. Actually, they both have paying jobs right now, so I'm very happy.
Oh, that's a really good thing.
Yes.
That's good. So, Linda, if I wanted to get a blog started, what are some of the things I should think about before I even start?
I think you have to think about what your focus is going to be. I was very free with my blog. I made a lot of tabs and a lot of different sections because I'm always thinking and I'm always observing. And I couldn't lock myself into one thing to write about, which is why travel is on there, but it's not the focus of the blog. You know what I mean? Which most people would think, having my background, that's all I would write about. There's so many other aspects to my life and to raising my kids and to me, cooking, fashion, that I said I have to have freedom. And the other thing is I am not technically good at anything. Computers, I mean, I'm okay. I get by. A lot of people out there can go and buy a website and buy a domain, and through, several channels that are online can create their own website. I didn't. I went to a wonderful woman. Her name is Ellen Sochelli. She's with Stage Door Design. She created my website, and she posts for me. So that's how I did, and that's how I'm able to keep up with it. If I had to keep putting it in and keep putting everything I write on there myself and set it up with picture, I could never do it. It's not me.
So are you saying that you write to her, you write your piece and then send it to her and she
I'll write my piece and I'll send pictures or whatever, and then she'll situate it on the blog. I mean, somebody may be very talented and be able to do it by themselves, like I say, and create the website on their own. This is part of reinventing yourself too, is also accepting what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. My strengths are in creativity. It's in writing. It's in ideas. My weaknesses, I'm very technically deficient. So
yeah,
I needed
hear you.
someone, and to accept that, you know what? And this was a very hard thing for me to do because I'm very independent. Very hard for me to say, I can't do this. Can you help me? Like, you're better at this than I am. And I've learned that as I got into my 40s, I learned to say, you know what? That's okay. Other people have more strengths or other strengths than I do. Maybe they can't write, but they can set up a website. You know what I mean? So to be able to reach out and say, I found this person that I can depend on to help, and that's basically how it works for me, and that's what works for me, for Linda.
And it's funny, Linda, that I have a website and I certainly didn't design it, and it's been since I first hired Chris Contento and Jal a couple of years ago. I think now it's 5 years. She's redone my website twice.
Yeah.
However, what I noticed from when I first had a website before Chris came along, I did exactly what you did. I would write and I would send it to somebody, and they had to and I had to wait till they posted it, and then if they had a misspelling or something, I couldn't do anything. So when I had my website designed this time, I don't touch any of the technical stuff, and Chris will tell me, don't touch this, because she knows if I touch this, I will mess something up. But it's created in such a way that I can go and put the blog on myself, but just my post.
So you're good, because I don't even trust myself. Ellen was like, don't you want to try? I'm like, no, I don't want to try it. Here. And she is like lightning. I mean, I tell you, in lickety split 20 seconds, it's up, and it's beautiful, and it's so well done. So I mean, I couldn't have done it without her at all. She's fantastic.
But those are two. That was a piece of the control I couldn't give up because I was like, but what if I want to change a word, or what if I see, as a writer, I read something. I remember, I think it was F. Scott Fitzgerald once said for one of his best books, I can't even remember which one because so many of them are good, but he said that he had read it some years later and thought it was awful, that the writing was awful. Yeah. And I thought, I get that. I get when you look back and think, I thought that was so good at the time.
And we do that, and I do it all the time. And I say, oh, my God, I thought that was good. What was I thinking? Holy cow.
I know.
And but listen, we all do it, right? I mean, I get up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, I got this great idea, and I write it down, or I put it into my phone, and I go back and look at it the next morning. I'm like,
what was that?
What were you thinking? What time was it? The morning was this? What were you doing?
Well, Linda, tell me something. Do you think that there's some blog topics that are better than others? Even on your blog, do you notice that some get more attention than others?
It depends on the group. So you have to remember your focus group. So because mine is therealhipmom.com, I'm focusing on moms on a day-to-day. I noticed that the cooking is very big because I didn't realize a lot of women don't like to cook. I happen to love to cook. I don't feel it's a dutiful thing. It's something that I really enjoy doing. So I do cook I cook Monday through Thursday. My kids know I take the weekends off, but I enjoy it. Some women have said to me, thank you for those recipes because they're easy, and I hate cooking. So cooking always gets people going, and definitely the stories about the kids. There's a topic, it's probably one of my favorite tabs, is called My Bad. And it's about the mistakes that I have made that made a great story after that you got through them. And it really helps women to go, oh my God, thank God someone else did that too, because that, and you can laugh. And that's one of my favorites.
Because we always think we have to be so perfect.
It's
and
awful.
then we find out that other people are not being quite so perfect, and they lived.
They lived. And, sometimes I look at my kids and I realize how much time and love and effort I have put into raising them, from bringing them home as a newborn. I mean, seriously, newborns, like you come home and I would look at each one of them and I tell my husband, I got to admit this. I go, did I do this again? Willingly? Like, like you're not sleeping, and it's like, and I say, God, my mother did this. Like, she got me to this point in my life. She took care of me. And I go, we all think the same thing. Sometimes you just want like, what am I doing? So, yeah.
Well, and you know what, Linda, I'm thinking about, you were just talking about the food, and I think diet is the other one. I'm thinking about, like, two of my favorite blogs are Pioneer Woman and Hungry Girl. And I keep looking at their things. Now, Pioneer Woman started out just because it was a way for her to connect with her family with that. They didn't have the money to make the phone calls or something. It was something. And so she started that blog so her mother could look, and suddenly other people were watching. What do you think gets eyeballs on your blog?
I'm sorry, what do I think is what?
Gets eyeballs on your blog.
What do I think gets eyeballs on my blog? I think, I don't know. I think there's just so many things on there that could appeal, to different people in different ways. I'm sure, definitely, like I said, I think that the My Bad for sure, because they're easy reads and we can relate, and cooking, and sometimes I get the fashion on there. I hear a lot of people about the fashion because I do put up an outfit of the week as well, which I haven't gotten to since I went on vacation, but I'm on it. But
let me ask you this: how long do you think a blog post should be?
I try to stay current and do once a week. Sometimes my schedule does not allow it. So what will happen is there'll be a day that I say, oh, you know what, today I can write. A lot of people will say I'm setting aside Tuesday as blog day and I'm just going to write. But when you're a writer, you can't force that creativity
to really
come
true.
Through. Right? Sometimes I get a burst and I go, I need to write now.
Right now, right, yes.
Yes, while I have this creative energy flowing, because tomorrow I may not have it. And when you're a writer, you understand. If you go to sit down and someone says, okay, write, you're like,
I know, I get like brain freeze.
So I get brain freeze sometimes, and then on a good day, when I'm like, you know what, I feel like doing this, boom, 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 I can get 3 or 4 pieces out. And then that's what I try to do, because that's how I make the most of what I'm doing, or my time. If I get 3 or 4 pieces out, then I know I'm covered for a week. But it's hard. It's hard to do it weekly. I mean, I had tremendous goals when I first started the blog of, okay, this was going to be a week. This was going to be every day. And then as the reality set in, and as I really started writing, I said, not happening. Right. Not happening.
I know. I find there's a time of day, like very early in the morning is a good writing time for me, or very late at night is also another good time.
I'm not a late nighter at all. Morning is when I really have my burst of energy. That's when, and also too, it's quiet here. The morning is quiet. Once the afternoon gets rolling and my kids are home, that's really when a lot of the activity takes place.
Now, Linda, we talked a little bit ago that you're Linda Perillo Zazzalli, and so many of us know that Perillo name from the commercials and your father for all those years. We need to take a break, but when we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about travel and travel for fall.
Sure.
So everybody hang in there. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women. I was like that too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous victorious women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. This is Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Linda Perillo Zazzalli, and we're getting ready to talk about some travel. Linda, I'm really curious. How old were you as a member of that such a big travel family? I'm curious. What was the very first trip you took on your own?
Come on, Anne-Marie. On my own?
Yeah.
You got to guess. Where did I go on my own?
Oh, Italy. You had to go to Italy.
I think that was the first trip I took when I was born. It was the first trip I took when I was, on my own. Italy. I mean, we do go a lot of other places too, but there's no place like it. It's my second home. It's my love. It's what I love to talk about. And, when I envision myself traveling, it's always Italy.
Do you still have family there? Do you have any ancestors there?
Yeah, we do. And it's really nice. Not that we visit, but, through the advent of Facebook and Instagram, we have reconnected. And I think that's great. And, a lot of people will contact me. I just had a cousin contact me recently from my father's town in Italy. I mean, I didn't think anybody was still there.
Wow.
So that's my mother's cousins in Genoa. She's got cousins there. She's got cousins in Abruzzo, where she's from. They still contact, and that's great.
So where are some, if I wanted to take now, if I'm an empty nester, and I had some time, and I wanted to take a week long. Let's talk first about a longer vacation, and then let's talk about some quick weekend trips. Where would be a good week, a week long vacation?
Well, I would say week long. I mean, it depends. Again, you have to focus on what you're looking for. Are you looking for fun in the sun, the beach, to hang out? Are you looking for a more cultural type of vacation with more sightseeing? Because, I have found that over the years you really can't do both. You have to be prepared for either vacation. You say, this is what I really want, or this is what I really want. So for a week, for me, if you're going to do, and you haven't been, listen, I would tell you to go to Europe. I would tell you to go to Italy and take in as much as you can. Although I think for a starter package for Italy, I think you want to do 10 days if you can grab it.
Mm-hmm. And so where should I go if I want to do 10 days in Italy for my first trip? I
would do a northern version. I mean, we have so many tours that are a northern version. But when I mean northern, I mean you want to do the hot spots like Florence and Rome. And Venice. I think those are your top three cities, and try to get as much in from them as you possibly can, because those are really your core.
My cousin recently came back from, my ancestors are from Abruzzi.
Oh, my mother, great.
But my uncle was from Sicily, and so my cousin just for the first time recently went to Sicily. I guess about 3 or 4 months ago. Went to Sicily, and she said it was such a different experience from going to the mainland of Italy.
Totally. Interesting. When people ask about Sicily, the first thing I say to them is, do you have roots there? If you have your roots in Sicily, then I say, go see it. If you're not going back for your roots and you've never been to Italy before, I wouldn't start with Sicily. I would do other things. But Sicily itself, it's beautiful. It's not as cultivated as the mainland, or the more northern areas of Italy. It's just, and it never was. But there's so much beauty to it, and it's very rustic, and it's full of history, and it's a very beautiful place to visit. But would I say go there before, if it was your first trip to Italy, do Sicily before you did other things? Probably not. Would I include it on a subsequent trip? 100%.
Interesting, and that I think she would probably agree with you, because she did the Abruzzi section, and she did Rome and everything. But this was where her father was from, so
yes. So it makes a that makes a difference. A lot of people, when they do travel, especially when they go to Italy, if their roots are Italian, they do like to go see, some of the cities and the towns where the ancestors are from, and it's a wonderful thing. I mean, Italy has archives. It's very interesting. Especially in these smaller towns, they have archives of people's birth certificates and records and marriage certificates, and that's, it's amazing to go and look at that.
Mm-hmm. And she did a little bit. She's the one person in the family who does genealogy and things, but she did say, and I think she was traveling with 5 other people, and only one of them drove stick. And that's all they could get. They could get a bus, and you had to drive stick. And the guy who was driving stick hadn't driven stick in years. She said, I was scared to death. And then it was all hills, and it was this.
Oh, yeah.
And then she had to walk down like 4 or 5 flights of stairs to get to wherever they were staying. And she said, why did I do this? But it's what you're saying, Linda. The next day, she woke up and she looked out the window and she's like, this is why I came here.
Yeah.
She said it was beautiful.
Oh, listen, I can't give you one place or the difference in Italy from region to region is incredible. I mean, in the United States, I think you can go from one section, the north, the south, the east, the west in the United States. Yes, things change. There's dialects, there's accents that change, there's food that changes. But in Italy, this is just from my experience, the demarcation from region to region, I think, is so visible. But it's wonderful, too, at the same time. You don't expect the same thing in every place that you visit, and that's, it's part of its charm.
It's sort of like going here in the U.S. to going from state to state. You're still in the same country, but you have different...
A lot. Oh, absolutely.
Things, yeah.
For sure.
Linda, a lot of people worry about, especially now, about safety when traveling. Is it different traveling in the U.S. or Canada than to Europe or the Middle East or Australia? Like, do you know?
I have to be really honest with you. There's a part of me that says, well, it is different. It's a different world. It's a very different world than it was, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when my parents were taking me as a kid, and you didn't really worry, and it was my father's livelihood, and so we didn't think about it. And listen, terrorism and terroristic threats, they have been around since the beginning of time. And I remember certain things traveling when I was a kid. You had to be, there was stuff going on. They bombed the Rome airport. There's all kinds of stuff. Has the world changed? Yes. Do you have to be aware? Yes. But you can't stop living. You can't say, I'm not going to take that trip to Italy because I'm afraid that something might happen, or I'm not going to go to London because I'm afraid. Then you're giving up your life. And travel is just such an unbelievable component of life and adventure, and that it's difficult, though. I understand why people get nervous.
Yeah, just people have said that to me, but and I was wondering a lot. I've been hearing, Linda, that I don't think in my whole life I heard as much as maybe in the last 18 months of people going to Iceland and Greenland.
Iceland is huge. Iceland is rocking right now, but Iceland also came into vogue, I have to say, maybe about 20 years ago. They started pushing Iceland in the travel industry because it was a very inexpensive place to go that was not so far from us here, from the northeast. You get on an airplane and you're there in about 4 hours. And you're putting yourself in a whole different country. From what I've heard, Reykjavik's a beautiful city. It's very rustic. You have to really like the outdoors. And I'm not ready to put on ice bikes yet on my...
and you're absolutely right. That's exactly
and go spelunking. It's not my thing, but I'll have to find a pair of wedges or heels that I can put ice spikes in. But you know what? It's out there, and I think it deserves some exploration because I think one of the things about Iceland is that it's close enough to home that people can feel like they went somewhere exotic.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it's very protected, and I hear the Icelanders, I guess we'll call them Icelanders, are very accommodating and hospitable group, and I think that Iceland actually has a great future in tourism.
Interesting. One of the couples, there's a couple I know that went, and they took like a little mini honeymoon when they first got married, and then about 6 months later they went to Iceland for the Aurora Borealis.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was telling me, and that the clothes they had to get, and the weather, but I talked to him when he got back, and he said he did get to see not everybody gets to see it when you go. It's like sort of hit or miss, I guess, whether you see it or not. And he did get to see it, and he said it was totally amazing.
Yeah, I hear one of my girlfriend just got back with her husband. They loved it.
Yes.
So I think it's worth exploring. Iceland Air, I think, has got packages and stuff that's worth investigating.
I'm curious, since travel is second nature to you, were you nervous when your kids started traveling overseas?
No, I wasn't, and because it was like, they could kind of get thrown into it. I've been traveling with them since they were born. I never gave up a minute.
Really?
Oh no, newborns. I had 8-week-old, 10-week-old. I just continued. I was never going to give that up just because I had babies. And the other part of it is I wanted them to experience early. I wanted them to experience travel very early on. And my son, actually, who's going to be a senior at Marist College in the fall, he just finished a semester abroad in Florence, and he's going into the family business, thank God. And he is my consummate traveler. I mean, this kid will go anywhere. And he has said to me, Mom, it's because you opened those doors to me so young that it became like nothing.
Very nice.
Yeah. But listen, you got to worry. He was in Europe for 4 months, and he was in places where things were happening, like London and Paris. And you just pray and
yeah,
what
hope
can I
for
tell
the
you?
best. Yep.
Yep.
You know what, Linda, if we're running out of time, but I wanted to ask you, if there was like one place in this fall that you could go for like a long weekend, where would you suggest?
It depends. Are we flying or are we driving from here, from the Northeast?
Oh, either one.
Either one in the fall? I don't know. I would tend to maybe start heading up north a little bit and see some foliage. People forget about New England and Boston and those areas up there, which are so nice. Listen, my husband and I did Vermont one weekend, and I loved it.
Yeah, that Franconia State Park is gorgeous in the fall.
Yeah, and it's easy, it's easy sometimes to just get in the car and go, even if it's 3 or 4 hours, and you're in a whole different place.
Yeah, and my favorite, of course, is in Maine, Acadia National Park.
Maine, I heard, is absolutely amazing.
It is. If you've been to Italy and you haven't been to Maine,
do you believe it?
Oh,
Somebody
you must
was
go.
busting on me. My nephew was busting me. He's like, yeah, Linda, you have not been to Maine.
Oh, yeah, you must go and explore the coast of Maine because it's gorgeous. Linda,
I'll have to go.
Linda, how can my listeners get some more information about you?
Okay. Where can they go? Oh, I'm sorry. Probably anything. My Facebook page. And definitely my blog, and also I'm on Instagram, and it's public, and that's The Real Hip Mom on Instagram. And I think you see a lot about me through my pictures and through my kids
I
and
agree.
through what I post about them, because that's really, I got to be honest, that's what I'm doing right now.
Well, Linda, it was so great to have you here today. It was fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much, and we'll see you some other time, I hope.
Okay, great, Annmarie. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, Victory Chicks and you guys, let's wrap up the summer. Don't forget you can find a lot of Friday Happy Hour shows on YouTube at Victory Chicks Radio. And when you're there, please subscribe. When I get enough subscribers, I can get Victory Chicks URL. So thanks for doing that. And, of course, I put a link to today's show on the radio wrap-up at victoriouswoman.com, along with some pictures of me with Elvis. Okay, I'm heading for the hills, but I'm thinking about all the places I want to travel, both the places I've never been and places I want to go back to. How about you? Are you daydreaming of a place you want to go and putting it on your bucket list? Then you'll like this quote from Susan Sontag, who said, "I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list." Thanks for coming today. Come back next Friday for the Friday Happy Hour. Have a victorious weekend. Chen's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.